America's accountant Dan Geltrude joins me right now with more on this. Dan, the $9 billion on Black Friday spending was a bit surprising, but I think even more just disappointing is $5,000 more in spending for Americans every single year. That talk about adding up. That is absurd. It's unheard of.
It's a lot of money. And you know what we have to think about there, Addison, is that yes, inflation is here. And for 20 straight months, we have had a situation where the CPI is higher than what wages are going up. So you really, it's one thing to say, well, inflation is going up by 7.7%. That's where we last landed. And let's say wages were going up 10%. Well, then you say, okay, well, net, we're ahead of the game. But that's not the case. What we have here is costs are going up and wages are not keeping pace. So people are truly falling behind. So what happens when that's the case? Well, people are going to credit cards, and you're going to see, I believe, this year that more Americans are in debt, credit card debt specifically, than ever before. And with interest rates going up, Addison, this is a really dangerous time to be putting on more credit card debt because it's going to be even more expensive.
How can Americans right now, Dan? How can they still, be smart with their money? How can they cut back on spending? And it's sad that we even have to have this conversation about really penny pinching, but that's the reality that we live in today. How do you go about as an accountant, as a financial guy, advising people with their money in tough times like this?
Well, the key here is establishing your budget. And when you're going to spend money on a credit card, especially during the holiday season where people start to get emotional about spending. It's the holidays and, oh, I really wanted to get this person this or that, and it's a little bit more. Because they put it on their credit card, they don't feel that pain until later on. So what people really need to do is establish a budget, stick with it, and when they're going out shopping, you know what? Use cash or use a debit card. Don't put yourself out there on a credit card. In other words, keep yourself kind of boxed in to make sure that you're not going to overspend. And it is difficult because of what we just talked about. You're going to get less and spend more. So that's completely in the wrong direction, but that's our reality right now.
I saw a meme last week. I think it was from the Babylon Bee, essentially saying that the Black Friday deals are really just what the prices were before Joe Biden was in office. Those are the big savings that you got on Black Friday. Now, on the note of inflation, we have this headline from Financial Times out yesterday. Headline says, global inflation likely to have peaked, key data indicators suggest. Now, the Biden White House has been suggesting, for months now that, it's peaked, and the goalpost kept on shifting. Has inflation actually peaked, Dan, from June when it was over 9%? Have we seen the worst of it?
Well, let's hope we have, but there's no guarantee that it has. I don't think that inflation is going to be down to where it had been a couple years ago for quite some time. Inflation is stubborn, and we're seeing that. Once prices start to go up and we're spending more for the basics, it's really hard to roll that back because what you see now is yes, that people are making more money. Many states have enacted greater minimum wage rates. Well, none of that is going to roll back. So all those labor costs are going to go straight into the cost of product. So when you have a situation like that, it's really difficult to have prices going back down. So I don't personally think that we're going to see inflation really rolling back to where we had been for quite some time.
Do you see it? Do you see it potentially, if it hasn't peaked, if it's not peaked from June? Do you see it going to perhaps 10%, or do you think it'll hover around the same that it's been the past couple weeks?
I think it would be a stretch for us to get up that high. However, the caveat I'll put in there is we are going into the colder months, and a lot of the inflation that we're feeling the impact of is related to fuel costs and energy costs. So is it possible because of how about a potential rail strike,
Yeah.
within the next couple of weeks? It is possible we could have some hyperinflation. Let's hope that's not the case. But everything aside from that, I think inflation will stay, well, a little bit in the range where we are right now. I don't think it's going to spike.
Well, hold the line, Americans, and get on that budget. Establish a good budget. You heard it from America's accountant, Dan Geltrude. A pleasure as always to have you on. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Addison.